Regina, Mater misericordiae, vita dulcedo, estes nostra salve.
The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke.
Glory to you, O Lord.
Jesus took Peter, John, and James and went up the mountain to pray. While he was praying, his face changed in appearance, and his clothing became dazzling white. And behold, two men were conversing with him, Moses and Elijah, who appeared in glory and spoke of his exodus that he was going to accomplish in Jerusalem. Peter and his companions had been overcome by sleep, but becoming fully awake, they saw his glory and the two men standing with him. As they were about to part from him, Peter said to Jesus, "Master, it is good that we are here. Let us make 3 tents, one for you, one for Moses, one for Elijah." But he did not know what he was saying. While he was still speaking, a cloud came and cast a shadow over them, and they became frightened when they entered the cloud. And then from the cloud came a voice that said, "This is my chosen Son, listen to him." After the voice had spoken, Jesus was found alone, and they fell silent and did not at that time tell anyone what they had seen. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Here in New Hampshire, we are blessed with 4 very distinct seasons. In the spring, we have the days that get warmer and longer. We see the leaves on the trees beginning to bud and the grass starting to show through the snow, maybe even starting to get green. In the summer, we have the warm weather to enjoy the mountains, the beaches, and the golf courses. The trees and the plants are absorbing the energy from the sunlight and filling our towns and cities with beautiful colors and natural fragrances. In the fall, we have the cool air and the vibrant foliage that brings tourists from around the world. In the winter, we have cold weather and snow in which the trees and the plants are without leaves and are not growing, for they are a time of rest. People are enjoying the snow and ice for winter sports. Each season provides us a different environmental lifestyle and nature with something that needs to keep growing. The natural seasons of the year give a rhythm to our lives. The same thing happens in our church with the liturgical seasons. Each liturgical season, God sends us the graces we need in order to keep growing in wisdom, holiness, and happiness. But these graces don't benefit our souls automatically the way the sunlight benefits plants and trees. Rather, we have to take them in on purpose. But how? How can we bathe in the supernatural sunlight that will make us grow, make us better, make us change during this liturgical season of Lent? Our readings today tell us the most effective way that we have for drinking in all the graces that God provides for us during Lent, and it's prayer. In today's first reading, it states that God took Abram outside and had a conversation with him. That's prayer. The responsorial psalm gives us an example of King David's prayer in the face of danger. "Your presence, O Lord, I seek. Hide not your face from me." David prayed. St. Paul in the second reading reminds the Christians in Philippi that while most people occupy their minds with earthly things, our citizenship is in heaven. Our attention is on God. That is prayer. And finally, Jesus leads his 3 best friends away from the hustle and bustle of life up to the top of a high mountain where he can be alone with them, to pray with them. Jesus wanted to pray with his community. We often overlook the most remarkable piece of evidence that shows us how important prayer is. Jesus prayed. Last week we saw him go off into the desert to pray, and in today's gospel passage we see him go up to the mountaintop to pray. And in dozens of other gospel passages we see the same thing. So let's stop and think about what that implies. Jesus Christ was God become man. He was perfect, sinless, without any tendencies to selfishness, laziness, or pride. His character was flawless, firm as the mountain. His mind was beyond brilliant, filled with the radiance of divine light and understanding. He had no emotional scars from a difficult upbringing, no disorders, no lacks, no wounds, no imperfections. And yet over and over again in the gospel, we see him go off to be alone in prayer. Sometimes we can even read about how he had to get up early to pray or stay up late to pray. But he always did it. Jesus found time to pray. If Jesus, who was perfect in every way, needed to pray in order to fulfill his life mission, what does that say about us? We who were so imperfect, so weak, so vulnerable. Christ was a man of prayer, and as he himself put it, no disciple is greater than his master. If he needed to pray, we also do. All of us here have to ask ourselves, is our prayer life in good shape? Like our physical bodies, our spiritual life needs exercise. Has it improved in the last year or the last 10? If it's out of shape, we won't be able to drink in the graces of God that he wants to give us this Lent, and the ones that we really need. We need to be honest. If our prayer life hasn't grown, we need to do something about it. God still has so much he wants to do in our lives, and improving our prayer life will make room for him to work. Praying doesn't require every special talent. Since we are all created for friendship with God, it's something everyone can do, like walking or breathing. And getting better at prayer takes two things. First, it takes a commitment. We need to decide firmly that we are going to take the risk of setting out on an adventure of prayer. And it is an adventure because we don't know where the Lord will take us. Secondly, we should choose a tactic, some concrete activity that we can do to become more experienced in prayer, to continue the journey up that mountain with Jesus. We can choose a new tactic in every liturgical season, and tactics don't need to be hard. They can be very simple. For example, reading a good book on the spiritual life before Easter, or subscribing to a daily meditation from the internet each day. There are so many to choose from: Bishop Barron, Redeemed, the USCCB, Dynamic Catholic, to just name a few. My emails are flooded daily with different reflections and spiritual authors that would love to have you subscribe to their daily emails. We should learn a new devotion this Lent, reading about its history and starting to practice it. Suggestions of the Rosary, the Chaplet of Divine Mercy, or Liturgy of the Hours are just a few. Today, as Christ comes once again to renew his friendship with us and give us strength to continue our Lenten journey, each of us needs to renew our commitment to become good prayers. Prayer can bring many benefits to our lives, and one that is often overlooked comes across today in the gospel reading. One of the reasons Jesus brings Peter, James, and John up the mountain is because they need to see a glimpse of Christ's divine glory. Just as Lent is bringing us closer to Christ's passion and death, so St. Luke's gospel, the passion is drawing nearer. They were on their way to Jerusalem. Jesus knows that his followers will see him betrayed, scourged, and crucified. They will be shocked and disheartened, and they don't know this, but he does. He knows that they will need something to hang on to in those dark moments, something that will give them hope and encouragement. This experience on the mountaintop is exactly what they need. It is meant to give them a deeper knowledge of Christ's greatness. This knowledge, this experience will enable them to persevere through the difficult times. God wants to do the same with us. Even better than a good parent or a coach or a doctor, Jesus knows what lies ahead for us. the triumphs, the temptations, the successes and struggles. He wants to equip us to get the most out of each of them. He also wants to outfit us for each stage of our life's journey. But if we don't make room for prayer in our lives, he can't do this. If we don't go up to the mountain with him and give him a chance to do and fill us with his grace, we won't be ready for what the future holds. According to Jewish tradition, Abraham lived about 1,800 years before Jesus. So what can his story mean for us today? It's simple. We too are called to walk by faith. So I'd like to propose one takeaway today. Each day in our time conversing with God, ask him, where are you leading me today, Lord? Lent is the perfect time to do this, since it's a time to turn to the Lord in a deeper way. Every time we ask that question, like Abram, we're making an act of faith to God. We don't know exactly where he's leading us, and we don't know exactly what will happen today. In fact, St. Philip Neri used to say, Lord, help me get through today, and I won't worry about tomorrow. But as we grow closer to God through the time we spend in prayer, we are asking him where he's leading us, and we're handing over our lives to him. Today, after communion, there will be a time of silence. We believe that we receive the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Christ. That's an invitation to speak to him. It's an invitation to tell him what's on our hearts and to ask him, Lord, where are you leading me? And like Peter, James, and John, and Abraham before them, we can begin to walk by faith, knowing that God is leading us home towards heaven.
Regina Celi, letare